Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how Games Workshop is a greedy, price gouging company who likes to create artificial scarcity and fear of missing out amongst its consumer base in an attempt to try and squeeze every last penny out of those few people that still buy directly from them. And with that totally unbiased and rather spicy introduction made, let's dive right into today's episode. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking at this point in the video. Would I rather have the submissive towel wife with the big skull crusher thighs, or do I want to go for the big titty dark Eldar girlfriend? Well, that is a question for another time. And I also know what many of you are thinking at this point is, oh, here goes another Warhammer 40k YouTube content creator putting out a low effort video, shitting all over Games Workshop, going, Games Workshop bad, wah, wah, wah. Easy target, easy clicks. Am I right? And I just want to say that this is not what this channel is all about. This is not what this video is all about. I have a point of pride on my channel that I always try and be as positive as possible about the hobby. Sure, there's always been the occasional thing that's got my back up, but by and large, I don't want to sit there stewing over what's wrong with the game. I want to talk about what's right and what's cool and what's happy and what's fun and how we can all get the most out of this fantastic thing that we all enjoy, which is Warhammer 40k. But something happened at Games Workshop this weekend that, for the first time in a long time, made me genuinely angry, like adult level of angry. I'm not talking about an angsty teenager railing against a world that he doesn't fully understand. I'm talking about the righteous indignation of the common man. You see, what happened is this weekend, Games Workshop put out their highly anticipated made-to-order for the Armageddon Steel Legion Imperial Guard models. Now, if you're a newer Warhammer 40k player, or perhaps you're new to the Imperial Guard faction, you might be wondering what the hell the Armageddon Steel Legion are. They are a classic regiment from the early editions of Warhammer 40k, and they used to have their own model range. In fact, they are the original gas mask boys of Warhammer 40k. They were around long before the Death Korps of Krieg ever became a thing. In fact, the first Death Korps of Krieg models were actually Armageddon Steel Legion boys that had been painted up in a slightly different color scheme. And you could see this in Codex Armageddon from 3rd edition. Now, Games Workshop produced a lot of different Imperial Guard regiments back in the day. You had different and unique models for Mordians, Valhallans, Vestroyans, Talan, many of the regiments, but one of the most popular ones was the Armageddon Steel Legion. However, the models were made in metal. Many of them had been produced since 2nd and 3rd edition. And so, of course, over time, Games Workshop eventually, bit by bit, retired the range until in 2021, the last Armageddon models were finally removed from Games Workshop's website. And this was the Armageddon Steel Legion Infantry Squad. You used to be able to buy all sorts of things like officers and weapon teams for them. But the last thing to go was this Warhammer 40k Armageddon Steel Legion Infantry Squad, which came with a grenade launcher, missile launcher, and a few. However, the models were made in pewter, they were metal, and of course Games Workshop over the course of many years moved away from selling pewter models. They're now all plastic. They're now moving away from fine cast, so it's all plastic all the way. And naturally that meant that bit by bit the Armageddon Steel Legion range was removed from Games Workshop's catalogue, along with many of the other classic guard regiments as well, until in 2021 the final product was removed from the website and you could no longer buy Armageddon Steel Legion legitimately from Games Workshop. Your only resource was to buy them secondhand on eBay or through other miniature trading groups. Now, for many people in the Imperial Guard community, those who were the longbeards, the veterans, the people that had been in the community for a long time, it was a really sad day when the Armageddon Steel Legion were removed from Games Workshop's website because they were the last classic regiment to go. All the others had gone before, but the Steel Legion Infantry Squad held out for a lot longer than anyone expected before it was finally removed. And so it was really sad because it was the true end of an era. All of these fantastic original Perry miniature sculpts had finally been purged from GW, and it just felt like the closing of a chapter. And naturally, obviously from a hobbyist and collector's point of view, it was really annoying because it meant that we wouldn't be able to add or grow our Steel Legion forces anymore without having to pay the ridiculous prices that were now going up on eBay. So you can imagine my personal excitement and the excitement within the community when Games Workshop announced that the Steel Legion were coming back for 1 week only on a made-to-order basis. Not only were they bringing back the original infantry squads, but they were also bringing back the long-coveted heavy weapon teams and unique officers of the Steel Legion. These are models that had been the first ones to be removed, that many people really needed to make their collections a little bit more fun and competitive, because the original Steel Legion squad just came with a grenade launcher and a missile launcher, and if you wanted to vary those weapons, you needed to buy a separate plasma gunner or a separate las cannon or heavy bolter. But all of the models were coming back, from the guy doing the cool pose with the power sword, to the man with the orc head, to the plasma gunners, and all of the heavy weapons. It was finally not just a infantry squad coming back, but it was actually also all of the different constituent parts that were needed to make a fully fleshed out Steel Legion force. For me personally, I was most interested in those special weapons and heavy weapons because I needed them to flesh out my collection. I've got plenty of the regular infantry, I've got the missile launchers and the grenade launchers, but I like to add a bit of variety to my loadouts. And also, missile launcher, grenade launcher, it's not a very optimum loadout, and I kind of want to be able to take my Steel Legion to games and even to tournaments and have fun using my models in a semi-competitive or competitive environment without feeling like I'm just massively handicapping myself. Now, for those of you who have been following the channel for a long time, you guys know I'm a fan of the classics. I prefer the old school Warhammer 40k models. I still prefer Tactical Marines over the new Primaris Marines. As a Black Templar player, give me Firstborn Crusaders or give me Death. And my all-time favorite 40k models have always been the original metal regiments. And Armageddon Steel Legion are my second favorite regiment of all time, only being surpassed by the Mordian Iron Guard themselves. So you can imagine the level of excitement that I was feeling. I was more excited, no word of a lie, for the Steel Legion coming back than I was for the current range refresh that the Guard has just had. I don't care about new Cadians. I have hundreds of new Cadians. I don't need any more plastic infantry, but I do need more of that pewter crack in my life. And so in the week leading up to the made to order going live on Saturday, I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get a dozen of the heavy weapons, dozen of the plasma gunners. I'll get one of each officer. Hell, I might even pick up a couple of the regular squads if they've got a good bundle. I don't even need them. I got loads of them. But you know what? If it helps round out the collection a bit, future-proofs me, or maybe I'll just treat yourself, then I'll go for it. And so for the first time in years, I was looking at dropping a serious amount of cash with GW and making a big purchase directly from them. Now, I know what some of you are going to be saying. Morning Glory, you can't really complain about what Games Workshop does if you don't buy from them very often. Let me be clear. I buy from Games Workshop directly all the time. I am not anti-GW. In fact, I make a point of going into my local Games Workshop every single week and buying something. It doesn't matter if it's a paint and a paintbrush or if it's a model. I always go in every week. And the reason I do this is because I appreciate the convenience of having a Games Workshop on my doorstep. I have lived in places where I've not had a local GW, and it's always so inconvenient having to wait for days, sometimes even weeks, for your models to turn up from other third-party retailers or from Games Workshop themselves. So just being able to go into the store and buy stuff is really, really useful for me. Let me be clear, I buy from Games Workshop directly all the time. It's just little bits here and there. That's not because I'm anti-GW. I'm not. I actually really like having a local Games Workshop, and I make a point of going in there every week and buying something, even if it's something as simple as a pot of paint and a paintbrush. I always go in and buy at least something because I've lived in places where I've not had a local Games Workshop, and it's really, really inconvenient. But I don't buy huge amounts often because I've been playing the game for decades. I have a huge collection. It's not a flex, not a humble brag or anything like that, guys. But but I have hundreds of guard infantry. I have dozens of tanks. So I don't really need to go in there and buy huge amounts. When the meta shifts slightly and I find myself needing an extra sentinel here or a special character there, then I'll get that from Games Workshop. Also, like many people, I like to consider myself a sensible consumer. I often ask myself the question of, do I need this before I buy it? And this is true for both my hobby and for my personal life as well. But there is always that time when you need to just treat yourself. And this was going to be one of those times for me. I was going to really just let my hair hang loose and just drop a serious amount of cash on something that I was genuinely excited about. Unfortunately, Games Workshop had other plans, and they decided that they were going to release the Armageddon Steel Legion made-to-order models at an unbelievably, unexcusably, some may say criminally high price. And it's this which has really, really pissed me off. You will look at some of these prices here, guys, and your jaw is going to hit the floor. We're talking about a single plasma gunner for £19. In terms of points value, guys, this guy costs, at best, 6.5 points in game right now in 9th edition. £19, 6.5 points. That might be a new record with how unbelievably expensive we're talking here. Heavy weapon teams, £22.50. Bear in mind before, guys, we all thought that you were looking at like maybe a tenner for a plasma gunner, maybe £12.50 for a heavy weapon team, something that was relatively in line with what Games Workshop sells the current guard range for. But no, we're literally looking at, it costs more to buy a heavy weapon squad with 3 heavy bolters than it does to buy a Rogel Dawn main battle tank. I do not know how Games Workshop can justify this. Maybe they're like, well, these models come with a base, unlike the Rogel Dawn, but actually it's unacceptable. This is a classic example of price gouging and false scarcity. Let me give you an example here, guys. Let's look at the Armageddon Steel Legion Infantry Squad. This was last sold in 2001. And it was sold for £20.50. We can find this out because you can go back and look at archive web pages and you know how much they cost. This was last sold for £20.50 2 years ago. We are now looking at £40 for the exact same squad. Even adjusting for inflation, that is unbelievably marked up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a naive idiot. I didn't think Games Workshop was going to bring these back for £20.50. I expected a price increase. The world has moved on in the last 2 years. There is higher inflation. There are more energy costs. And simply, this is made to order. Games Workshop is making it special. They are retooling some of their resources for a limited time only. Naturally, that has cost implications. But on the other hand, these are molds that Games Workshop already owns. They're not having to go out and make a special mold for a limited edition model that's only going to be available for when an anniversary comes around. No, these are molds they already own. And on top of this, these models are incredibly limited and simple. They are single piece mono pose models. They come in a single piece that you just slot into a base and you are good to go. And you have no weapon loadout or variety, which is going to make it slightly unattractive to a lot of people that would be considering picking these things up. I honestly expected that they would charge 30 quid for one of these squads. That would be a reasonable price. I would say, you know what? They're charging the same amount as they did for the New Cadians. That makes sense. It's consistent across the board. 10 guardsmen equals 30 quid. But £40. £40. That is almost double. I don't know how they justify that. I mean, okay, I know how they justify it. We like money. But I don't know how they morally justify it. But £40. £40. It's almost doubled. It boggles the mind. I have no idea what they were thinking. I mean, okay, I know what they were thinking. We like money. But I don't know what was going through their minds when they put that price. Surely they understand that that is going to put off a huge amount of people. It's almost like they want the made to order to fail, which I don't get. Why would they want that? And that's the real kicker, because this made to order is going to fail. I know dozens of people, maybe over 100, between the MG Discord, the wider guard community, and in my personal life, that were thinking of really committing to Steel Legion. They were like, I've always wanted the models. If they're a half decent price, if they cost the same as what the current guard range costs, I am going all in and I'm going to pick up loads. It's going to be my new army. And now none of those people, I'm not saying many of them, I'm talking literally zero out of 100 plus people that I know on a regular basis, none of them are committing any serious amount of money to this made to order now. Most people are picking up one model. Most people are picking up either the Steel Legion Commissar or the Orc Head guy or the Steel Legion officer with the power sword in the cool dueling pose. That's it. Now, if you're a Games Workshop executive hearing this, you might be very confused. Surely all of you had already made the mental decision and prepared yourself to drop the money. Just spend it anyway. Get a little bit less. It'll be fine. Wrong. You see, I've talked about this before on my channel, Mr. GW Spy, and I'll talk about it again. But everybody has a line. Now, that line isn't a physical line. It is an emotional line. It is a mental line. And you feel it in your heart when you're going to make a purchase. If it's something that you believe is reasonably costed, and everyone's definition of reasonably costed is different, depends on your own financial situation. But if you believe that something is reasonably costed, then you don't feel the line. You're like, yeah, that's cool. That Armageddon Steel Legion squad coming out for £25. That's a good deal. That makes you happy. You want to feel like you've got a good deal. So it's below the line, so you buy it. But if something is above the line, even if you had already planned on spending hundreds of pounds, it's above the line. So you don't spend the money. And most people have a physical feeling and reaction to when something goes above the line. A lot of people, when they see something that's expensive, they whistle and they go, that's kind of pricey. But no one does that when they're getting a good deal. Everyone just gets excited and they're like, oh yeah, give me more, give me more. But when something is above the line, there is a physical reaction. And even if you were already planning on spending a lot of money, you get this sickening feeling, you get this bad feel, you feel like you're being taken advantage of, and you just go, you know what? I can't justify that. And so even though I had come in here to prepare to drop hundreds, and in some cases, depending on what you're buying, thousands of pounds, you just don't, and you just walk away. Well, I mean, the best case scenario for Games Workshop is you walk away, right? But what a lot of people are going to do is not just walk away. They want the models. They've seen the models, they want the models, and they're not going to pay ridiculous Games Workshop prices or eBay scalper prices. And let's just be brutally honest here for a moment. Let's get down to brass tacks. It is not hard to find recasters or 3D printers anymore. You can Google Armageddon Steel Legion Squad. You don't even need to put recasts in. You can just Google Armageddon Steel Legion Squad, and in the first page or two of Google, there is recasters advertising by Armageddon Steel Legion here. Or you can search for Armageddon Steel Legion 3D prints, and page after page after page of models are going to come up. Ones that are literally the original models that are available to be 3D printed, or ones that have been updated and are bespoke and more modern, a little bit more dynamic looking. The point is, you're not short of finding Steel Legion models for an exceptionally reasonable price, or even a goddamn bargain. I mean, I don't want to over-egg the pudding and labor the point, but you could get an Armageddon Steel Legion Reinforced Platoon for £331.50 from Games Workshop, and that's going to come with about 40, 50 infantry. Or you could buy a 3D printer from Element Games and a bottle of resin for about 250 quid and print off hundreds of these models. So as a consumer, not only are the Games Workshop prices prohibitively high for me, but I have easy access. I don't even need to go crawling through the dark pages of the internet. I have easy access to the same models for a ridiculously cheaper price. And when I say cheaper, I mean a fraction of the cost. Now, I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, including myself, but I have seen some screenshots that have been taken from recaster websites that have been shared in some private Facebook groups. And we're talking about plasma gun guys being sold for £3 a pop. That's £16 cheaper than Games Workshop. We're talking about heavy weapon squads and las cannon teams being sold for £5 each. That is more than 75% cheaper than buying them from Games Workshop. All of the different characters, yep, they're £3 each. Steel Legion Squad, the OG one, £10. 10 models. And in all of these groups, I am seeing people who have never gone near recasters before, either because they've not been that bothered about it, or because they're like ethically against it and their own moral compass says that they don't really want to do it, or because they're diehard GW fans. All of these people, even the most fanatical Games Workshop shill in these groups, have gone, screw it, I'm not buying them from GW. I'm going to get them from the recasters. Because remember, they already made the mind up that they wanted to buy the models. Now they're just getting them from somewhere else. So not only have these Games Workshop prices for these Steel Legion, these ridiculous, over-the-top, just greedy, scummy prices, not only have they stopped people from buying them from GW, but they've actually opened loads of people's eyes to the alternatives out there that they wouldn't have gone anywhere near. And from my experience, not my personal experience, but from me watching people who end up going down the recaster route, once you go down that route, they find it very hard not to keep going down that route, because it's like you finally see through the lies of the Jedi, right? You're like, why have I been paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds to GW when I could have been saving so much money? Because at the end of the day, most people get a good feeling when they get a good deal, and most people have a bad feeling when they feel like they've been ripped off. Okay, so this video has kind of been going on long enough now, and I feel like it probably could have been summed up in one short sentence. Warhammer player angry at GW prices. In other news, water is wet. So let's wrap it up. But before I go, I actually have a big favor to ask you guys. And no, it's not like and subscribe or anything cringe like that. You're your own boss. You don't need me to tell you what to do. But instead, I would really appreciate it if you guys could leave a comment down below letting me know your honest thoughts and feelings on the whole situation. Specifically, I want to know how these prices have affected you. Have you looked at this made to order and you've gone, you know what, this is just too much. I am out. I'm not going near GW. I'm going towards third-party alternatives. Or do you see these prices and you go, you know what, it doesn't bother me. I just like the classics and I like getting them from Games Workshop because it's a source that I know and trust. Both points of view are absolutely valid. I'm just really interested to know what the take from the guard community is. What is the vibe? And I've got one other favor to ask you guys. I want you to share this video as far and wide as possible. Oh, here he goes. Mordy and Glory shilling out for views again. How's that ad revenue treating you? No, hang on. Hear me out here a second, guys. I don't care about the money. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message. I want this video to go viral. I want it to be seen by as many people as possible because I want it to put pressure on Games Workshop. Maybe I'm being a naive idiot, but we've seen them change their mind before. When the community got so outraged about Leagues of Votann Codex being utterly broken, Games Workshop addressed it. And I want them to do the same thing with this. Maybe it happened, maybe it won't. But I am committing right now. I'm not going to buy these models from Games Workshop at this price. I'm not expecting them to lower them down to something ridiculous. I'm not expecting £1 per model. I'm a reasonable man. I want to see these prices brought in line with the new plastic Cadians. Not more expensive than that. I want each Steel Legion heavy weapon team, the last cannon and the heavy bolter, to cost £10 each. And the squad should cost 30. That's what it cost me to buy them for the Cadians. I want to see my Armageddon Steel Legion Commissar, my Sergeant with the Orc head, and the two other officers being sold for £13 each. That's what you can get the old Catachan officers like Strachan and Harker for. The Plasma Gun dude should be £8. It's one dude, and whilst it is a special weapon, his sculpt is based off one of the basic riflemen. The Armageddon Steel Legion platoon should be £80. It comes with less stuff in it than a combat patrol, and the price should reflect that. If GW does that, if they just bring the models in line with the regular guard range, if they just stop trying to price gouge us and trying to capitalize on our fear of missing out on us wanting to get these classic models, then I will buy directly from them. I'll encourage everyone in my community to do so as well. You have my pledge and my promise to do that. And on that note, with that solemn vow made, we're going to end today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.